Okay.
All
Hey
right,
everybody.
Izzy, would you go ahead?
Sorry, Michael. I didn't mean to steal your thunder.
No, good.
I'm Izzy. I am currently an API developer at Kroger, but it took me a few years to find this position and find this role where I'm really pretty happy. And so I started out. I went to Miami University for a computer science degree. After Miami, I worked at a company called Sagetti, which is a consulting company. And I got put on a contract where I was primarily in charge of creating documentation that then got presented to a group of people. This was a while ago, I don't super remember about it. But it kind of sucked because I just spent a lot of time learning how to write code and I was writing documentation. So I was there and I was like, hey, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to write code. And they didn't really know what to do with me. I had several people ask me if I knew how to actually write code. My response was always, I have a computer science degree. And a lot of people just were like, I don't know what that means. So since they couldn't sell me in roles that I actually wanted to be in, I got let go from Sagetti and worked at a company called Omnicare. This was a step in the right direction. I was a system administrator for their HR software, but my manager absolutely hated me. I walked into my mid-year review once and he told me he tried to fire me twice. And that was it. So Omnicare eventually got bought out by CVS and I got laid off from that job. But it was okay because I made some connections at that job. And I ended up working at a company called, Top Gun Sales something. I don't really remember a lot about this job. I only had it for about 3 months before they lost a lot of money and I got let go once again. But it's okay because through that job, I made my connections that got me my job at Kroger. I'm coming up at 5 years at Kroger. This is the longest I've ever held a job in the professional world. So that's pretty exciting. But I did start on leap day. So like it's technically 5 years, but it's also kind of like 1.25 years. So, do your math. I am super passionate about being an ally and practicing inclusive behaviors. I also really, really enjoy working with developers who are just starting out in their careers and are learning how to be a developer and learning what our professional world looks like. And Michael got me into speaking. So I've spoken at several conferences about how much I hate comments in code, how to be an ally, how to be a better ally, and like how to properly onboard junior developers. My other hobbies include cooking, baking, and playing Ultimate Frisbee at an elite level. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell. What else do you want to know?
Hi, this is Brian. Where do you start when you onboard a new person on your team or your company? What's the process?
Buddy system and pair programming. I think getting a new job is a very anxiety inducing event, right? No one likes their first day at work. It's always stressful. It's always more difficult than you think it should be. Even if you believe in your skills and you are confident in your ability to do whatever job you've been hired for, you're still being introduced to a slew of new people all at once, which is overwhelming for everyone. So I really like making sure that whoever is being hired has their onboarding buddy, and then immediately just pair, don't even worry about making sure that their accounts are set up, that everything is you kind of have to make sure they can log into a couple of different systems, but as soon as they can log into literally the bare minimum, get them pairing with somebody so they can get more hands-on experience. And then it's just kind of for apprentices and interns, I have a step-by-step kind of thing to do, but it's mostly just keep them pairing until they feel comfortable going off by themselves. And make sure you check in with them every week or so to make sure that they're doing stuff that they like and figuring out what they're still struggling with and figuring out ways to solve some of those blockers.
One of my favorite things about starting at Kroger was it wasn't, here, read this pile of documentation. It was, hey, welcome. Let's get your laptop set up and let's write some code. And I'm like, that's awesome.
My first day at Kroger, I spent like the morning at HR, and then at lunch, I like went over, met my new team, which was called Cookie Monster at the time, which is great because I am a cookie monster. I'm a very cookie motivated individual. And like immediately just hands on keyboard started pairing. And like nobody questioned that I was a developer, which was really exciting because that was not my previous experience. And like when I onboarded at Omnicare, like they did what Michael did. They gave me the stack of documents and I read it a lot faster than they thought I would. So then I was sitting there with like nothing to do for a couple of days and they pulled me in a room and they're like, why aren't you doing anything? I'm like, well, I did everything you told me to do. And I've, you know, been asking for work and you haven't given me any. So I don't know what you want from me. That should have been, you know, clue one that job wasn't going to end well. My favorite cookie, I have my mom mail me chocolate chip cookies where she uses peanut butter chips or like peanut butter M&Ms as the chips. And those are my favorite cookies.
That sounds delicious.
Yeah.
You can't go wrong with that.
No, you really can't. Hi, Stella.
So what are the pros and cons of pairing versus mobbing?
So mobbing you do in a situation where everybody needs to learn the same thing quickly. Like if you're starting a new project and you want all of your developers to be able to understand the base of the project, that's when mobbing is beneficial. Pairing is a lot better once everyone's kind of familiar with that project and you have like you can work kind of semi-independently from each other. And then pairing is so beneficial for getting people up to speed or teaching somebody how to like do something that they haven't done before, in which case you always want the person who's learning to drive as much as possible because they'll learn a lot more if their hands are on their keyboard versus, you know, they're just sitting and waiting. And then I don't have cons for pairing. I'm sure managers here could give you cons for pairing, but I don't believe in them. So like whatever. But there are, you know, people whose working style doesn't really mesh well with yours, and that's maybe not the person you want to pair with. But, you know, for the large part, like you can learn stuff. I learn stuff so much faster when I'm pairing. And especially if I'm lost and I don't necessarily know how to solve a problem, I really prefer to do that with a buddy so that while I'm just sitting there and like I have no idea what I'm doing, I can just be like, oh my God, what's happening? Like someone help me out with this. And then we solve it together and I don't feel quite as alone because I don't know how to do something that no one on my team knows how to do.
Have you ever run into a awkward situation in pairing where maybe somebody has BO or bad breath or
well, not so much this year because I can't smell anybody other than myself and my dog. I don't have a really good sense of smell, so both of your things are not helpful for me. But if I did run into that, I'd probably like try to talk to my manager and have my manager deal with that problem, which is why I don't want to be a manager because I don't ever want to have to tell somebody they have to shower or brush their teeth.
Cube layouts that don't really accommodate two people. I've tried to pay. I've been assigned to parent shops where there's nowhere to sit. Some shops are just really badly laid out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How would you guys, or Izzy or anyone, compare or contrast pairing in person versus pairing virtually?
That's actually something I'm very curious about because I've only ever paired virtually. I've only been developing during the pandemic. And I was going to ask Izzy, what technologies? Do you usually look at the same screen or do you share a virtual screen?
So in-person pairing Kroger had a really great setup. And I didn't feel like I've missed you so much. Where like we had, hold on, I got to get my dog down and she's going to make a noise. Get down. Cool. Sorry, she was falling off my lap and it was hard. A 50-pound lap dog is not the appropriate size for a lap dog.
Isn't that an oxymoron?
So at Kroger, we had a really great setup where we had 2 monitors, 2 keyboards, 2 mice, and they controlled the same terminal. So we all had like our own personal space, but we're able to look at the same problem. And that I feel like we had a lot more like give and take on like what was going on. Whereas remote pairing, like we typically just screen share over Teams, which is really great when you're working with people who are trying to learn. So then like I physically cannot control the screen. So I don't like, I can't give into that urge that I have to like take over. But like sometimes it's a little harder to like direct somebody because you're like, oh, on this line, and then after this word, no, like 2 characters over. Okay, great, we're there. So like that gets a little frustrating sometimes, but it's fine. So.
Damn.
So, Izzi, have you used anything like live share or anything like that?
No.
Okay.
It was just easiest to get teams. So.
No, I that's what we do mostly is we just do the shared screen, and it's worked out really well for us. But I know that a lot of people really swear by like live share. I think it works particularly well if you have relatively evenly matched developers. You know, where I think a lot of what you talk about tends to be more, you know, it's more senior, more junior, and so it's good to have the junior driving and the senior kind of advising.
Yeah, I haven't been in a situation recently where it's been 2 super evenly matched developers. It's always been one developer teaching another developer something. Like even if we have like the same skill level, right? Like I'm not super proficient in Go, and my team that I'm on works a lot in Go. So when I'm working in Go, I'm pairing with somebody who knows Go much better than I do. So I'm driving so I can start typing Go and getting familiar with the language while they're telling me what to do.
So I'm curious, to the group, has anyone who would consider themselves, a senior level, advanced developer that has paired with another senior level advanced developer? The few times where I've talked to folks like that, I don't know that I've run into too many of them that like to pair. But I it's not a statistically significant sample set, so I just wanted to stick it out there and see what people have to say about that.
There's a lot of competitiveness out there, and senior people who really buy into their seniority a lot, there's things get waved around, I'm just saying.
Yeah. I'd agree with that. If you find 2 competitive senior developers, they're not going to pair well with each other. But like, if you can find 2 senior developers who are willing to like respect each other's opinion, then that's a good pair. But yeah.
When somebody decides they don't have anything to learn anymore, it causes lots of problems.
Yeah. And actually,
you pair a lot, right?
Yeah, we do a lot of RT. And it's honestly, the majority of engineers at RT are senior level. And really it's more about personality and working style, kind of like Izzi was talking about. There are some people who just don't like to pair because they feel better when they're in their own head and they're doing things. And then the people who do like to pair, I mean, there's my best friend at work, like he and I could pair 8 hours a day together and it'd be fine. Like we just feel more productive around each other. Like we're bouncing ideas off of each other. It's more about that and making decisions earlier in the process rather than later and waiting for, a PR to go up and then reviewing it then. As we're thinking it through, like we're having this conversation about like, okay, how should we architect this? I really enjoy it.
In that case, you have a strong relationship of mutual trust and respect too, though, right?
Absolutely. And I think it's the same with the other people that I've paired with at RT. It's different people know different things. They bring different backgrounds to the problem, which is also really fun. And honestly, I think the probably most valuable thing to me is just like watching someone else work and seeing the way that they use their editor, seeing the tools that they use, like learning all these different tricks that they do, how they would even think about a problem. It's super interesting.
Yeah, that like the tricks is something that I try to work on a lot too, is if I'm pairing with someone, especially if they're newer, like making sure that they learn how to like rely on their IDE if they need to like refactor, rename something, and like try like helping them learn how to make the tools and like work for them instead of like fighting them. That being said, I do not understand Vim, so those of you who can develop in Vim, like more power to you. I don't get it.
That's the worst part of pairing, is when someone is using Vim and you're like, I don't know what you're doing.
That's the one cool thing about live share is like you can each use your own setup to some extent. So like I've done that a couple times with my coworkers who use Vim, and if I need to do it, it's just I'm using my VS Code and it's got my, key bindings, and not their crazy Vim stuff going on.
I don't get it.
And they're awful dark backgrounds.
Oh God, I hate dark mode. I always have like light mode on my screen, and all of my everyone I work with, it absolutely hates me because I refuse to use dark mode. And they're like, Izzy, your screen is so bright. And I'm just like, yeah, that's fine. I have blue light blocking glasses for a reason.
I was told this gathering wasn't going to be personal attacks. I can hear everything you people are saying.
Well, I get personally attacked for using light mode, so it goes both ways.
Although I agree that we should not be using all the crazy new shit like Vim. Tico was
Cutting
awesome.
edge.
Yeah. Vim is for people with 2 hands.
Or, I mean, what about the whole VI Emacs?
You're dating yourself.
Now we're talking. Now we're talking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was Brian remembers those days.
Yeah, VI wins, man.
Remember when we used to have to make our own ones and zeros by bashing rocks together too? Yeah, those are the days.
Ooh, my earrings, which you can totally see over the internet, are like punch cards.
Oh, cool.
Cool.
No.
Yeah,
Izzy.
I'm old enough to have dropped a box full of punch cards in the union.
No.
That sucks.
Were they numbered?
It was awesome. No,
Oh, so
it was a mess.
throw them out.
It
Or
was
what?
it was my very first semester as a freshman, and we never had to use them again. They were, we went to the terminals literally the next semester. And so we still had to do the thing where, you take your floppy disk over and you stick it in a terminal, and you edit your code, and you go over and you submit your job and get your printout, and then go and look through it and be like, crap, and go back over to the thing, get back in line to get into one of the terminals. It was, man, talk about a slow feedback loop.
Yeah.
As probably one of the younger people in this group, no, I cannot relate.
It was crazy.
Yeah, I don't know how it even worked. I mean, how we got anything written back in the day,
Yeah.
So this is Brian back on the pairing. Let's say you've got, 2 senior people or senior person and a less senior person. From a project management perspective, how do you estimate the work and how long it'll take?
So we always point like normal. Point as you would if you were working it by yourself, and then like velocity just kind of like levels out over time. So like the first sprint or 2 that you start, you're gonna have like a weird velocity, but it'll eventually level out, and it's not a concern.
Okay, so it sounds like, assuming you're working with the same partnership for, some period of time, you start to even out. Okay, I'm with you.
Yeah. We would always pair rotate once a week. So like we would come in on, I can't remember if we did like on Mondays or Tuesdays. We would pair swap, and we'd have a pair stairs. So we would make sure we weren't always working with the same person, so that we could get like fresh eyes on problems. And then one of the pair would always be the inker, and the other pair would kind of like go and start on something new. So we'd always try to get junior developers to anchor as much as possible, so they could see stories all the way through and weren't having to context switch as much.
Makes sense.
But yeah.
So I'm in the old school manager front, and just kind of makes me uncomfortable to turn 2 people into 1 people.
So like one of the arguments for pairing is like, because you have 2 sets of eyes while you're working on it, right? You'll have less bugs, because you'll have, like I'll think of, oh, like this could be a bad scenario, let's try and test out this and like find a way to account for that. Or like you won't have to go through the code review process quite as slowly. So you do gain a little bit of time there.
It's a shift left productivity. Yeah.
I don't know what that means.
You're not just generating your work product, you're also generating knowledge transfer. You're raising up the total value of your team while you're doing it.
So I'm with you, Brian. I'm old school developer too, and then went into management and, don't code on a daily basis or anything anymore. But I had a small stint where I went back into architecture and I started to code again. And pairing was awesome. I mean, that's how I learned, that's faster than almost anything else I've ever done in computers. And, it cracks me up because back in the day when I was in school, if you worked with anyone on your programs, you were cheating. And, and it's like, how ridiculous is that now, that we should be encouraging this? I mean, just the thought, the people will self-govern, right? I'm not going to pair with a fellow student that's riding on my coattails the whole time, right? Kind of thing. So I do think it would still potentially happen, but I think they should be. I don't know if anyone else does, but they should be encouraging pairing in school these days, in my opinion.
Oh yeah,
agreed.
There's a trade-off.
Randy, tech elevator. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Mark.
Oh, I'm just saying there's a trade-off for management. They can get more done, or they can measure individuals more precisely. And there's a continuum of how much you want to pair and how much you want to do a lot of other practices. A lot of management would really measure individuals precisely, and they're giving up a lot of productivity for it, and they're okay with it.
Yeah,
that's just ignorant, I think.
Yeah, I am always faster when I'm pairing. Always. Even if it's like the simplest ticket ever, I will be faster if I have somebody with me than if I'm by myself. Because when I'm by myself, I distract myself very quickly. But if I have somebody else, I'm like way more focused on the problem and do it without, checking my phone 500 times.
Pairing can help you focus. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't like to pair all day though, almost for that reason. It's like, brain needs downtime.
Yeah. The days when I pair all day, I get to the end and I'm just like, oh my God, what happened today? Wait, I've got like 50 texts from my friends. I've got 5 emails. Like, what is going on here?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and Stephen, you said 8 hours of pairing, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, that sounds exhausting. I mean, I'm sure if it's great, but
it's definitely an outlier case because we're just really good friends. Where like if we need a break, we're going to talk about other stuff.
Yeah,
that's good. Yeah,
we're also very aware of how each other are doing, and so like we can tell when one of us is losing focus. And we'll be like, okay, let's just take a 15-minute break and come back.
Yeah, and Dan touched on it too, but the other thing, as a software development manager now for a lot of time, enough years to recognize this, is the pairing. So even if you have someone that is a rock star developer, can crank out a lot of code, works better by themselves than to pair, I still think there's a huge value to having them pair, because now you've got 2 sets of folks that understand the code. And people go on vacation, people leave, people get new jobs, so from a resource resiliency perspective, pairing is buying you a lot. And if you want to look into the stats on how much it costs you when you have turnover on a team, that's huge, so I think managers that don't take into account that holistic view of where the value is being generated are missing out hugely on the pairing and what it brings to the table.
Yeah, when did I join your team? July, right? Early July, I joined John's team. I didn't have to do any knowledge transfer to my old team because I had been pairing 100% as soon as we realized that I was going to be switching over to John's team. So my knowledge was automatically somebody else's knowledge. And then when I joined John's team, I started pairing immediately, and made the onboarding process and understanding everything that this team does so much faster than if I'd been by myself.
Yeah.
So when you say the word programming, it means you're coding, but that means what you're building, right? So how do you pair architect or pair design so that what, or is that, how's that part work?
In my opinion, it kind of works, especially in the virtual world. We do our discoveries and refinements as a group like this, you know. So I was gonna relate that to you mob on it, right? There's probably a few things to talk through when it's a larger design or, you know, broader scope, a problem space, architecture. So it's good to have, some multiple heads in that space and talking about pros and cons and different ways to approach and solve it. And then once that starts to solidify, then you can, do the work breakdown and divide and conquer kind of stuff.
What's the percentage of time you kind of spend in the mob phase? It could be per week, I guess.
We spend a lot of time doing our discoveries and refinements as a team. I know the what was the OKR book that inspired? I know that a lot of them talk about, you've got a team kind of working ahead on the new stuff and breaking it down, and a team doing the implementation. We didn't find that to work very well. You spend more time, when you have that handoff. So this is another lean concept, right? When you have that handoff, you're losing information. And then you'll spend more, you'll be more error prone. And then you'll spend more time trying to explain, okay, well, we already discussed all these things and this is how we, what we came up with. Now you just go implement it. And it just doesn't work, I don't think, with technical people. So we literally essentially mob until we have stories that people can implement or pair on.
And there's always, I think it's important to, there's always flexibility. Like, yeah, sometimes some work, I'm going to knock something out by myself, or, I'm going to go off and do this thing and, I just need some me time or whatever. And, only assist speaks in absolutes, right? So you just, but the important thing is to incorporate those elements and to start to experiment with them and say, oh, well, this is adding value to our team. Like, for instance, I was, we've done a lot more mobbing on my team, and we found that to be really valuable, especially because we have, people in some form of junior, and it's been great because everybody gets that input and that information. We're all able to collaborate at once and share ideas about how this can be best implemented. I found it to be really useful. So.
And I think you do increase the chance that someone can kind of be coasting through that a little bit. So, you definitely want to make sure folks are engaged, and that obviously highly depends on the team and the individuals and all that.
I mean, I think the team knows. If you ask the team knows. I think that I've yet to see an example where, somebody's coasting and the team isn't aware that they're coasting.
Yeah. And so coupling this with, 360 feedback, fairly frequently, not so much so that people are like sick and tired of it, but is also very helpful. As a manager, when I when I discuss things with developers and stuff, it's extremely helpful to me to have 4 or 5 different voices providing both constructive and positive and constructive feedback, criticism. I feel like it's helped me help them a lot more than if it's all just coming out of my mouth. It's not I'm not nearly as effective as the group think and from that perspective. So it's another thing that I think actually helps the team and individuals on the team grow.
Yeah, I would say I've gotten better at understanding and accepting feedback when I'm getting it through like a pairing situation. It's a lot closer to the situation and the scenario as opposed to like my mid-year review where my manager told me he tried to fire me twice and then only told me it was because it was not John. It was another guy. But like the only reason he gave me was, I don't like the way you talk to me sometimes, right? Like that's not helpful. Whereas if I'm pairing with someone and they're giving me like feedback on the code that I'm writing and it's in the situation and like it's a lot easier to understand and accept, and like you figure out a lot better what's going on. So like it took me a good like year or so of working at Kroger to not be terrified by a one-on-one with a manager. And then I'm still absolutely terrified of like surprise all hands meetings. So, you know, I got a lot to work through.
Yeah.
It's not just you.
Yeah, after this year, we're all going to have lots to work through. I have regular
Randy,
dreams.
or any other, sorry, go ahead, Jessica.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Randy, or any other boot camp people, do they encourage pairing and mobbing in your boot camps?
A lot of the assignments, they try to rotate as much as possible. So one-on-one, and then groups of 3, then groups of 4, and groups of 5. And it ends up being kind of like a speed dating of paired programming. And I think I learned more through the different personalities that I got to work with than just about anything I've almost learned in life. I feel as though, John, you had mentioned that it might have been seen as cheating at one point to learn from somebody else. And it reminded me of how at one point teachers in my upbringing started just doing open book tests all the time, because the idea was, what are you going to do in the real world? You're going to talk to people, or you're going to look it up, and Google's my best friend nowadays, and whatever gets the best results and helps everyone is the best. However, that's a long answer, I should say. I know Ben here is currently in Tech Elevator, so he probably has something to say about that.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely try to do the pair programming, but when you're, so new to coding, it's not always the most productive thing. And it's not, now, we're going into week 13 or whatever. We have a little bit firmer grasp, but those first couple weeks of, all right, we're going to do pair programming, you're driving, you're navigating. And it's like, wait. Maybe we should sort of, collaborate a little more first. But I definitely think now, you can see the benefits to it a lot more when you already have some basis of knowledge there. That sort of helps. And then I think, mobbing with like bigger groups is much more productive in like the boot camp space.
Yeah, like it is always like when I'm working with someone who's like just came out of a boot camp or like a Tech Elevator kind of situation, right? It is always like a little weird the first couple of months, because like there will be times where I'm literally telling them like key by key what I want them to type, and they just like don't get it. But I still think that they learn a little bit more with me telling them what they're doing, and like they also have the ability to like completely stop typing when they're like so lost that they need to stop and like talk through what we're doing. And then the whiteboard or pieces of paper is my friend, so I can like draw out what's going on, because I'm terrible at explaining things without visual aid. So
how do people feel about maybe the flip side of that, where you're trying to draw the line of, do you keep handing them fish, or do you teach them to fish? At what point does the question to the senior, if you're a junior senior kind of pairing relationship, at what point does the senior maybe never should the senior say, why don't you go try to look that up first, or why don't you try that first, but instead of just actually it was Dave Britton, but when I was pairing with him on something, he literally told me, here, I'll Google that for you, and I, so I didn't do that again, because, obviously I could do that, but sometimes it was just easier to ask him than actually Google it. But I'm just curious what people think there. Like, can you take it a little too far, or, how do you balance that?
So I'll go off on points too, where I leave them alone for about 20 minutes. So like, I'm a huge fan of time boxing any sort of problem. So if we're working through something and they have an idea, like, let's time box 20 minutes, let's see how far we go. If we're making progress, we'll keep going. If we're not making progress, we'll stop and think about and maybe find a different solution. or once they don't need me to tell them every single word that they're typing or whatever, like that's the point where I start leaving them alone for extended periods of time. We sit down and we talk, okay, this is what's going to happen. Like, this is what you need to do. I'm going to go over there and work on a jigsaw puzzle or something. And so like, I'm doing something super not important. So interrupt me if you need me to like help you out if you get stuck before 20 minutes, but in 20 minutes I'll come back and we'll talk through like where you're at, and like we'll kind of keep going that way, so that it gives them, like, I call that the training wheels phase, where like I'm still here, I'm still dedicated to you if you need me, but like you're doing stuff by yourself and you're learning that way.
It's a smart approach. I like it.
We figured that one out when so I worked with a lot of apprentices at Kroger. I think my current role is the only role I've had in like 2 to 3 years where I haven't been working with an apprentice. But I still talk to apprentices at least twice a week, from the ones that I know from elsewhere in Kroger. And our first group of apprentices, we started doing that because they started saying that they wanted like a little bit, they didn't want to necessarily be with us all the time. And we're like, well, what the hell? Like, do we smell? And then they like, you know, we got the feedback. They're like, they want to try like driving or like trying to solve problems by their own. And so that's when we adopted like the training wheels phase. And that really worked out. So we kept it going with all the other apprentices that we worked with.
I was going to ask, did you frequently, or do you ever quote unquote assign homework to your apprentice? Say, hey, why don't you take this? Or is it always be in tandem with them? And by homework, I mean work on the project that you are, not separate learning.
So like, I'll recommend for like homework, I guess, to like go read up on like Git or like some simple topics, like something that we touch on a little bit, but like if they want to do more, I'll be like, all right, like maybe go find some articles to read about that. But I'm usually, you know, like on the same projects with them if I'm not a multitasker. I don't believe in multitasking. So if I am pairing with somebody, I try my best not to pick up tickets by myself. I had one coworker who did that, and I remember just being kind of like, this is a little weird that you're doing this, because like you picked this up because it was a super simple and easy ticket, and if you thought it was a super simple and easy ticket that you could work on the side, well, why didn't you just have the apprentice work on it to begin with, if it was that simple?
So the most you do is those 20-minute blocks and then come back?
Yeah. As it will, like, that's what I start with, and then like as they keep going, it gets longer and longer and longer. Or like it's super helpful too if I have like a lot of meetings in a day, just like, you know, going to the meetings and coming back and seeing where they're at. So then those will be like a little bit longer periods of time. But yeah, I start with 20 minutes, and then once they can do a couple hours by themselves, that's when like we don't need the training wheels period, and then they can start like actively participating in like a more equal kind of pair, as opposed to just like a driver and a pilot. Or no, those are the same thing, driver and a navigator.
Cool.
I know.
Has anybody tried to pair through a spike, like more of a investigative topic or task?
Oh yeah, all the time. Because then you get more ideas to how to solve the problem, and you have someone like Steve was saying earlier, like to bounce ideas off of. Pairing and spikes is super helpful, but I think Ben was
right. Even more so than even like doing a ticket, I would think. So did I interrupt you, Izzi?
Ben is trying to ask a question.
No, I was just commenting on the previous conversation that for me, just getting like, if I need help with something, someone just giving me the answer is really not of that much benefit to me, and that's not what I'm interested in. I want to sort of know the why and what goes on, you know, behind that, because that's going to either lead me to the answer, or, you know, it's just going to give me a lot more information that I can use for other stuff.
Oh yeah.
Just do this, which is, I think, where a lot of people, you know, struggle in these like first jobs, they're just, a boss is telling them, just do this. And they're not growing at all.
Yeah, that's also too why I always propose that whoever needs to learn is driving, because like Ben, when you're at that point where you don't fully understand the why, like you have the ability to stop everything that's happening and dig deep into the why and ask the questions that you need to understand what's going on before you continue.
So Ben, I got a question for you too, because when I did my short little stint back into trying to code again, there was so many things I needed to learn, so like I would rat hole on things, Docker and IDEs and, just so many different things coming at me all at once that I was trying to figure out. And I was amazingly unproductive at times because I just kept following the rabbit down the hole rather than actually solve the problem I initially, needed to focus on. And I did that a lot. I kind of relied on my pairing partners to pull me out of that a few times. But do you fall into that at all? Or am I alone?
Yeah, no, I think I am always getting into situations where, I take on too much, and really, having that partner there is a big help, because you're telling each other like, hey, you need to get back on track, or, just you're doing really good at this. You have that support system there. And
don't worry about this yet. Let's just solve this, then we'll move to that. That kind of stuff.
And that's been, I mean, as in this boot camp, that's been, I feel like, really lucky, because it's been such a supportive group of people we have that all sort of understand that, like, we're here for ourselves, yes, but we're also here for each other.
So sticky notes and Sharpies are my number one tool as a developer, because as I'm working on a problem, if I find the rabbit hole or like something else that I need to like take care of or work on but don't want to switch my focus yet, write it on a post-it note, stick it to your monitor or a wall near you, and then when you're done with your problem, you go back to your sticky notes and you like helps remember like what you need to do.
Yeah, I do that throughout the day, just throwing them on my own desk here by myself, and if someone else saw it, I'd look like a crazy person.
Oh, absolutely. I've had days where like
indecipherable messages.
Yeah, I would use like the window behind my computer to like put my sticky notes on. And like the first month that I was on the team that I'm on with John and Jessica, like my window was completely covered with stickies of all of the stuff that people told me I should read or look at or do to like onboard onto this team, and it was a mess.
Yeah, I think some people are actually, they don't like to use Post-its or paper or whatever, because it seems like a low-tech way of doing things. And I know I just feels like there are people, young developers who think that way, and that like, oh, I should be using some sort of app or anything else, something that has to do with technology, but paper still good for some things.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the Post-it notes actually serve as an information radiator in their own right. We walk by Izzy's desk and there's a shit ton of Post-it notes. Okay, Izzy's thinking about a lot of things right now, right? I mean, that's actually useful, that's useful feedback for everybody.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm also the person who made a Trello board to help keep track of what I was making for Thanksgiving. So that happened.
I use a personal Kanban,
Yeah.
So one thing, this is Brian again, back to what John was saying, kind of re-immersing into the environment. You have to learn the IDE and whatever you're using for source code control, whatever you're using for testing, and those things kind of go back to the onboarding kind of avenue, because I can see getting overwhelmed and, oh, by the way, you have to create this thing also with all those tools you don't have a clue how to use. And so there's kind of a feedback loop to the onboarding that
Mhm.
probably needs to be about when anyone comes on the team. And even if you think they're doing pretty good, they might still be buried by just using the tool and not focusing on the problem to solve with code.
Bye, Steven.
You
Yeah,
may-
that's another thing too that like buddies and like pairing is useful for, because if I'm like trying to use a new IDE, here's someone who's already been using this IDE who I can just ask my questions to and like learn quickly. So.
Yeah, and the other thing I found was the resources for figuring out stuff that I didn't know was just overwhelming compared to the last time I was coding, right? You know, you can Google everything, there's Stack Overflow, there's, you know, it's like, it's just endless, you know, that somebody else has run into this problem already, you know, and that part was fun, you know. So I would get frustrated by like why something core dumped. Some people feel like that's an awesome challenge to go through. It annoyed me, right? This thing core dumped, it should work. I can't figure out why. You know, it's going to come down to a missing semicolon somewhere, or, you know, something stupid. And, you know, I just hated that. You know, it was because it should be working. It's 99% there. You know, it wasn't fun for me when I ran into those just wild, you know, things. But then I would find, you know, someone on the team that just loved to dig into that stuff and then would teach me like how to read a stack, you know, stack dump, you know, and that kind of thing. And then it be, you know, once you start to know how to do some of that, then it becomes a little bit more fun and less of a mystery. And, you know, it's basically all about learning, right? You just have to be in that constant mode.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm going to drop because I have to talk to my boss now. So
bye, John.
This was nice. Thanks for the invite.
Thanks for joining, John.
Mr. Richardson. We'll see
You're
you guys.
welcome.
You
It's a
guys.
pleasure to have you.
Bosses have bosses, huh? Wow.
Unless you're,
wow.
unless you're the CEO, right?
Well, they've
Then
got
you
a
have
boss.
the board of directors.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
Board has customers, and it goes round and round. Yep.
Yep. What else do we want to talk about? We've talked a lot about pairing and mobbing. We haven't talked any about like allyship or inclusive behaviors. If anyone wants to talk about that, it's a huge passion of mine. We can also talk about Harry Potter, because that is also a huge passion of mine.
What's an inclusive behavior?
So like using inclusive languages. So like John, like 5 times in this call said guys, not a guy. Jessica's not a guy. Sarah's not a guy.
Yep.
We're not guys. Saying stuff like you all or folks. Definitely my thing. Understanding too that like not everybody has like your same interests or privileges. So like think of like I used to use the example of like going out to lunch, right? But we don't really go out to lunch anymore. But like if your team is doing like a Zoom happy hour, does everyone on your team drink?
Oh, that's
right?
a big one.
Yeah, even if like you're saying, well, we're not all around alcohol, so you can drink whatever you want. You know, people don't want to sit there and watch other people drink. I say this as I have a glass of wine next to me, but like, it's fine. Like, you know, stuff like that is a really like inclusive behaviors kind of thing. What else do I talk about for inclusive behaviors and allyship? Understanding the difference.
I can drop your talk in the chat.
Yeah. Oh, did you?
I
don't
can
have
do
my
that if you
second
want.
computer up because I thought I would start accidentally surfing the internet.
So I put in your one about comments.
Okay.
And this is the one she gave it software, that Izzy gave it software craftsmanship earlier this year. I think it's July or something. It's really well
It
done.
was June because it was right after George Floyd
That
died.
is the
Yes.
that is the ally video.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So you can watch me go on for about an hour about inclusive behaviors. I said that talk to my parents because I don't think my parents know that I speak at conferences, but they don't like understand what it means. Because I told them that I spoke at a conference and their response was, "Oh, your brother spoke at work." And I was like, "Yeah, like that's the easiest thing to do, Mom. Come on, like people had to review my talk." But my brother works at Amazon, so they think that's super cool. Jerks. Anyway. And so then I think at this, they were kind of just like, oh, like our daughter, like this is different than what we thought it was. So, and like, this is something that they could understand too. And like I called them out in the talk for not calling me Izzy. They used my full name usually. And they like immediately apologized and started calling me Izzy, which is also kind of weird because I don't really know what I want my parents to call me, but whatever, it's fine.
All right, Harry Potter.
I'm a Gryffindor. I had a Harry Potter themed wedding. There are over a dozen Harry Potter related items in this room. I can reach 5 of the 7 books from where I am sitting. This painting behind, or this poster behind me is the 3 brothers meeting death in the style of Van Gogh's Starry Night, which you can't really see because of
I was wondering about that.
But
I thought it's great.
Yeah. My wedding theme was drunk Harry Potter. So my husband's homebrews. So he made all of the red wine for the wedding, and it was like wine and Harry Potter, but I thought it was funnier to say drunk Harry Potter. And then my sister-in-law told me that that was not a wedding theme, and I told her that her wedding theme was rainbow, so she couldn't judge me, and it was my wedding, not hers, so whatever. Yeah.
I'm feeling kind of a vibe from this whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
You are, Mark. You are.
Yeah, like Izzy wants to put a spell on her sister or something.
Okay, so is it inclusive? Is the Harry Potter fandom itself inclusive?
The fandom is inclusive, the author is not.
Okay.
So I kind of started ignoring her a little bit. She is very transphobic, which is not a value that I respect or appreciate or align with. So I've just started ignoring everything that she says, but that in my mind, like, doesn't compute to necessarily like the work that she put out. Cause
right.
before she started being a dumpster fire, right? Like the world itself was very, very inclusive. It's just the author who is not.
Wasn't it nice when she just gave away a lot of money and we got to like her for that?
I know. But yeah, it was hard when she started talking about stuff like that, because it was a value that I never expected her to have or speak about, even if she had it. So like it was a shock.
Yeah, and I think it's important to be able to sort of address these things in a more head-on way, I guess, with like not like when John, as Izzy mentioned, was saying like guys and referring to everyone. I think something like that, in his mind, odds are he didn't realize he was even doing it. He thought it was innocuous, whatever. But I think it's important to be willing to just come out and say that to them at the time, because
John knows. John is really good at accepting feedback. Him and I have had the guys conversation a lot, and there are times where I catch him saying it and he corrects it. It's one of those things that like guys to address a group of people is super, super common. And a lot of people, like, it's a struggle to get past how that's common. Like the one thing that I ask for at least is that you start recognizing it and you start trying to correct it when you recognize it, and understanding that no one is perfect.
Oh, absolutely. And I was just using that as the example just because it just came up. But so many times we're so much more comfortable or even look forward to complaining about it after the fact, because, you know, part of us likes being right. We like feeling that moral superiority. And in reality, to fix it, really have to talk to the people who are the ones perpetrating it. So, you know.
Like, Jessica and I've had this conversation a couple of times too. Like, it's hard to always be that person who is the champion, who is the ally, who is calling out the like non-inclusive behaviors. And it like, I think after I gave my talk in June, I had like a week where I was just mentally exhausted. And like our whole team, because it was around the time that like George Floyd died and like mass protests were happening around the country. And like our whole team was like mentally affected by this. And then we got into retro and our scrum master was like, your velocity was super low this sprint. And we're all just sitting there like this was a bad week. We had a bad, like if we'd had several low velocities in a row, fully understand, call us out for it. We had one sprint where we had a low velocity and look at everything that's happening around. And like, it was really hard that week to separate ourselves from like what was going outside at work. And like, we all collectively just struggled. And like, that was really frustrating to have to deal with.
I have feelings about busting a team for low velocity also.
So do I. Especially 1 week of low velocity.
Right, yeah.
Velocity too is, it's just a numbers game. It doesn't really mean anything, honestly. And each team velocity is only like accountable for that team, and you can't compare two different teams' velocities because teams point stories different ways and teams have different working styles.
Yeah. Doc Norton's book on that is really good. He published it was called Escape Velocity or Escape Velocity. Depends on how you want to say it.
Yeah.
But that's a lot of it. Yeah, right there.
I think I'm gonna have to get out of here. Izzy, thank you so much for sharing with us, and it's great to see everyone's face again. I look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thanks.
Randy.
Yeah,
Take care.
I'm gonna jump off too, but it was really good to see this. Thank you, Izzy.
Bye, Jessica. I'll see you tomorrow.
Bye.
We'll see y'all later.
Bye, Brian.
Bye, Brian.
Take care.
Thanks, Izzy. See ya.
Thanks, Riley.
See you, gang. Go.
Bye.
Gang is new. Oh.
Gang is
right.
Okay.
Yeah, right. See you, everyone.
Gang is better than guys.
Better than guys.
There's definitely better terms to use.
Right. Yeah. I heard that coming out going, oh, no.
Yeah, but you heard it and you recognized it. And that's step one.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, Mark.
Good night.
Hi, Stella. No. My dog is looking at me now. It's fine.
The dog is always looking at you, unless the dog is sleeping.
That's true.
I was waiting to jump in here, but so I'm new to my team, and we've actually decided to start a team norm document. So if you're a new person, you don't know what's going on or the culture or the organization, to come in, read this, and kind of give you a feel, right? So I'm actually ironically in a position of power to like influence, what this looks like. So what would you say is just like a number one inclusive behavior that I can like throw into the document to be proactive as far as change goes, right?
Don't interrupt each other. Number one, if someone is talking, they are the person talking. And then, be respectful of everyone's opinions and ideas. Like, don't automatically shoot down an idea. Like, at least try it before you shoot it down is another good one. What else?
So I was just thinking, I mean, do you think that changes at all with doing like working virtually, right? Because for just now, for example, it's kind of hard to make sure I'm not interrupting someone if we're trying to do, this is different, right? We're in like an open forum situation where we can, exchanging ideas, but.
That's why, so like I agree, it is a little bit harder in a virtual situation because you don't always know when someone's about to start talking or wants to talk, right? You don't see the visual or social cues that you do when you're all in the same room. But a lot of virtual tools have like raising hands or like chat features. So like if you need to add to the if you want to add to the conversation but don't want to forget your topic, like interrupt somebody, you can like chat what you're trying to say, which distracts focus a little bit, but is a lot better than physically interrupting somebody.
Cool. I'm taking notes, by the way. I'm not just.
I saw you. I thought that's what you were doing. I looked like David was almost taking notes too. David's been real quiet. It's like he doesn't like me anymore. It's fine.
I absolutely like you, Izzy.
No.
I take a lot of notes.
Perfect.
Yeah, no, today's conversation has been really great, and so I'm kind of have a little different perspective, maybe a little bit, just because I've been kind of going down this road of trying to be self-taught, and now I've made this decision that I'm gonna enroll in Tech Elevator, so I'll be jumping in January.
That's exciting.
Yeah, so now I'm thinking a lot more about, okay, what do I want to focus on, and really in the Tech Elevator experience, and thinking about what are some of the key skills and focus on at the end of that road. So good stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, just from my experience, because I definitely tried to do the same thing beforehand, you know, plan it out every step of the way. This is how this is going to occur. And you'll hear trust the process a lot, which not the biggest fan of that saying, just this blind trust. But in this case, there is like the people involved in the program know what they're doing. You know, it's like a great success rate. So I'd encourage you to be just relaxed going into it, and sort of, you know, before, you know, thinking about all these plans for where you want to see the program go or what you hope to get out of it, just sort of, you know, get in there first, and then things will just start becoming a lot more clear, and the plans you make will have a lot more potential longevity, just because it's really hard to like really explain what you're about to get yourself into. It's like, I know for me, like I had these thoughts going in, this is going to be one way. And then 12 weeks later, I'm at a completely different place. But over the 12 weeks, I feel like now I have just an incredibly clear idea of what it is I want to do in tech. And that doesn't match necessarily what I had thought before. So I don't want you to worry too much about the planning and expectations. And I will say that specifically with Tech Elevator, that they do a great job of delivering on everything they promise.
Mm-hmm. I would also add on to what Ben's saying with like where like what he's doing now isn't necessarily what he was expecting to do. Ben, in a couple of years, you're probably going to find a new passion in tech, right? Like your passions in tech change all of the time. Like look at my career. I started out writing documentation, even though I wanted to write code. It's fine. And like now I am in a position where I like evangelize APIs, and I write and I like give talks and stuff like that. It's like stuff that I never thought I would have done when I was first starting out. And it's amazing. Like one of the best things about tech is it changes all of the time, and you get to change and adapt with it. And then one of the worst case sides of tech is things fail all of the time, and you have to learn how to fail with it. And it's fine.
If you weren't looking to learn for the rest of your life, you're in the wrong industry.
And also just going to things like this, you're going to be at such an advantage, David. Like you're going to, like, this is a huge leg up. I know for me, I had worked in tech startups before going in, so I was a little bit just further along and even just understanding some of the terminology and stuff like that. And it's probably going to come a little bit easier for you than it is for some other people. Not so much the coding itself, but just sort of all the other things, the, you know, peripheral stuff you don't really think about.
Yeah, I was talking to a group of high school girls, Sycamore High School's like Women in STEM Club recently. And like one of the things that I made sure to let them know that like one of the reasons I like tech is because I'm always learning, but one of the downsides is I have to be willing to fail, because I'm always going to write a bug. I'm always going to like at some point cause a production issue. people are gonna panic, and I just have to like learn to accept failure.
Yeah. Oh, totally agree. And that's one thing that I'd almost feel like they should have had a day, at least a day devoted to failure. And
I think I just have my topic for my next talk.
just like embracing it, because it's just
embrace the failure. Embrace the, is that like a Marines kind of thing? Like embrace the suck.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I just want to add.
I love it.
I just want to add into that. Just get used to feeling uncomfortable all the time, David. Right? Like just that feeling of where you're just constantly learning and unsure, and kind of just get used to that, and then kind of roll with it. I think some of the best advice I've ever gotten was not starting, this may be a stupid question, when I ask a question, because I mean, it's just, just don't do it. If you're thinking that and someone else is thinking that, is more than likely, going to ask that. So yeah, good luck. That's awesome to see you're going down that path. I'm really excited for you.
Yeah, no, thanks. And that's a huge point. Is a huge challenge for me is that whole idea of just, you're going to fail, you're going to fail, you're going to fail. I keep trying to visualize, I keep trying to tell myself this visual of like, if you can imagine like running down a hill, and it's all you can do to just get your feet out in front of you as just to keep yourself from falling over. I have to get used to that kind of feeling.
Well, yeah, and I think, our entire lives we're taught failure is bad. That's, essentially what it is. But I think it's important to also sort of put terms like good and bad on the back burner when you're jumping into this, and also, what's the best, what's the right way, because those, like, there's not like one right way to do any of the stuff you're learning. You're going to be shown, there's going to be a lot of different ways to make a program work, to, write a line of code. Just so be more concerned about the why and the how than, whatever your instructor puts up there. Don't treat it as gospel.
Yeah. I'm dropping a link into the chat. This is a TED Talk I saw recently by Simone Yates. She is a Swedish inventor, and she makes useless things. And part of the reason that she started making all of these useless things was because growing up, she absolutely hated failure. So then she started getting used to failure by like making herself fail, by like designing the most ridiculous things. And she goes over a lot of that in the TED Talk. And that was one of the things that really helped me like understand the mentality, like the mental stuff that I was going through. And like how
they are ridiculous.
I love
her.
She is awesome.
Yeah, I love her Tesla truck. Like I'm so jealous of Truckla.
That's a nice truck.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. She's awesome. I really admire people like that. And yeah, that's good stuff. Yeah.
I'm glad that I finally know how to pronounce her last name.
I am not sure that I did that right.
Oh.
It sounded right.
I think it's close, I think.
Yeah, I was thinking like Simone Giertz.
No, I think it's
super jealous you've met her.
Not once.
Oh.
That's what just came home.
But not once, but twice.
That's awesome.
The first time was kind of randomly in the Bay Area when I happened to be there, and she's holding a workshop, and it was like her first time she had ever really done anything in public. And then the second time was last year at Abstraction. She was one of our keynotes, and I helped moderate her Q&A session afterward.
That's awesome. So how do you pronounce the last name then?
What was it? It's like Yetz, I think.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. All right.
One second, I gotta go tell my husband something.
See you, Connor.
Sarah, are you out on the West Coast?
I'm in Pittsburgh.
Oh, okay. Nice.
Used to be in Kansas City, but I moved 2018.
Okay.
What I miss?
Simona's awesome.
Sarah used to live in Kansas City.
But now I don't.
Now in Pittsburgh, home
No,
of
she doesn't.
home of the what 11-0 Pittsburgh Steelers.
Boo.
I mean, I don't really
know.
care, but that's
I haven't kept up.
I know my brother-in-law is a huge Steelers fan, and my wife had been out last night with my sister-in-law, and she goes, "Oh yeah, so-and-so's home watching the game. Oh, they won again. They've won 11 straight games." Like, what? Yeah, the Steelers are 11-0 for NFL, which is pretty astounding. So,
true.
But I don't care.
I don't support teams who lead quarterback are racists, so I'm not a Steelers fan.
Yeah.
I don't really keep up with football. I'm surprised that last year when the Chiefs won the Super Bowl, I actually knew about it because nobody here cares. And then all my friends back home are like, "Oh my God, have you watched?" I'm like, no, I don't.
I like sports that I participate in.
I much prefer watching Ultimate Frisbee than no, actually Ultimate is boring to watch. Kitty cat. But yeah, not a fan of football. Also, I'm a Browns fan, so life is hard. It's fine.
Sarah, what's your kitty's name?
This is Rorschach.
Oh,
Rorschach.
You can tell he's probably extremely large. He is 16 pounds. He's not overweight. He's just extremely large. His brother? Yeah, his brother's in the cat tree over there.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's mirrored. I mean, his brother's like 18 pounds. Oh, and he loves people.
Those big cats.
See?
That's impressive that your cat is willing to like be your scarf.
Oh, he loves it up here. It's just purring up a storm. I can hear the purrs through my headphones.
Oh, that's so cute. I miss having cats. Stupid Tim is stupid allergic to cats, so I can't have any. It's stupid.
Up until up until about a year ago or so, I'd been a cat owner for probably 30 years. Don't have any more cats in the house, but I had one for a week while my daughter was home, so that was kind of cool.
Aw, kitty cat.
Along with her dog.
Yeah, we have 2 50-pound pit bulls.
Yeah.
One really likes attention, and the other one wants to be under blankets. So.
Good stuff. Well, I'm gonna bail. Izzy, thanks for being today's
no problem
special guest, and
thank you, David.
Really enjoyed the conversation.
I'm actually gonna stop recording as well.
Yeah, that'd be cool, so that I can chug the rest of